Hi, my name's Phil. I like to come at politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the grand Tory misinformation portion of their general election campaign, now that it looks like it's been unleashed, not to be confused with Unleashed, the name of the Boris Johnson's next work of fiction, which I've been having a little bit of fun of improving the cover of. But a little pleasant thought for you before we get on to the unpleasantness. Today is the beginning of the final full week of this Tory government. 14 long, grinding, desperate years. This is the final full week. The election, of course, is next week, but the government will have changed before the end of it. So we're in the end game now. And the Tories know it as well. Their campaign has given up trying to win. The tone of their adverts says loud and clear, Labour are coming. But ahead of the general election campaign, I'd expressed a concern multiple times on this channel that I knew the Tories would go into the campaign well behind in the polls. How are they going to narrow them with what they were doing? I knew Sunak would be personally awful. I knew he'd get limited support from the big guns in the party for a number of reasons. First, many of the big names in the Tories are just as bad at Sunak campaigning. Second, half of his cabinet are in a tough fight for their own seat, so they're not going to be spending much time on the national campaign. And third, quite a few of the big names were on the backbenchers and are looking forward to a bruising loss to maximise their own influence afterwards. The last thing they want to do is help the party limit the damage here. But I also knew the Tories have no scruples and that they would sell their own grannies just to win a few more votes. Their campaign was dirty enough in 2019, and that's when they were on for a stonking win. Now that they're facing potential wipeout, the motivation to run the nastiest, most dishonest advertising campaign ever would be immense. And I expected it to be fired off as we got closer to polling day for maximum impact, reduce the amount of time independent fact checkers as well as Labour and other parties have to sort of explain to the public, no, this isn't quite true. So I thought even, going into the final week, when you expect most of the advertising to hit anyway, because it's really in the last few days that a lot of voters really do decide their voting intentions. But my question before this campaign is, will their dirty tricks work? We know they have no qualms, but will they have the basic competence to pick lies which will actually work? It looks like they've decided to choose their sort of smorgasbord now. The Conservatives are pushing social media adverts talking about mythical Labour policies. We had the £2,000 extra tax bill from the start. It's been roundly debunked to the point where the Tories can't even bring it up on television without it being immediately called out, even by some of their kinder interviewers. But now that Labour have released their manifesto, the Tories have started imagining all sorts of made-up taxes which might exist that Labour haven't specifically ruled out. Labour haven't ruled out a tax on like stacking boxes. Oh, there'd be a stacking boxes tax. Some of them, they've come out and Labour have just had, no, obviously we're not putting taxes on that. That'd be silly. But the Tories just come right back with another invention. They're running one advert prominently that says Labour will introduce a new family home tax. No. In fact, they've got policies specifically aimed at helping people get family homes. Pretty sure I'm expecting to hear about the cushion tax for anyone with more than 6 cushions in their home. The noodle tax for people who are partial to a stir fry. Maybe Labour should introduce a talking nonsense tax. But then donations have been quite poor for the Tories this campaign. So, maybe they won't be able to afford to pay it. But this is relatively run-of-the-mill desperation. What's amazing to me is that the Tories have actually launched their London mayoral campaign for the general election. When the general election was called, I can't remember who it was, a well-known Tory, and I've forgotten who it was now, I'm afraid, said, we should do what we did in the London, take a leaf out of Susan Hall's book, the Conservative candidate for the London mayoral election, who lost really very badly. And I remember saying to them at the time, you lost, didn't you? You lost quite badly. I said, at the time they were running the London mayoral contest, I did think some of the things they were pushing, they seemed to me like they were trialling things out for the general election. But given that they did so badly in those elections, I thought, they got a smaller share of the vote than the previous two, despite Labour's Khan being the incumbent for a while now. I know they changed the voting system, but the Tories did that. You'd have thought they'd have come to the conclusion that maybe the London campaign was not a great source of ideas for the general election. You would be wrong. And I don't mean they're replicating it in the sense that, just like with Susan Hall, they're just making up policies and saying Labour have them when they don't, when they've even ruled them out, like the pay per mile. No, they're literally using the exact same ones. The Tories are running social media adverts which claim Labour are going to, they're going to put a ULEZ there, a ULEZ there. Oh, where you live? Yeah, there's a ULEZ going there. Like, no, we do actually have ULEZ in some parts of the country and they're not controversial at all. But Labour, their big thing, the substantial part of their manifesto is getting decisions like this to be made locally based on local needs. The Tories are also going, they're going to bring in pay per mile as well. It's like, remember, this was a Conservative proposal under Boris Johnson. Another one about Labour flattening the green belt. It's like, okay, no, they're just going to allow building on already developed parts of it. Like what already happens under the Tories. And Labour are going to get rid of the nuclear deterrence, despite a firm manifesto commitment not to. And the advert specifically says that Rayner will scrap it. It's like, well, Rayner's not going to be the Defence Secretary. And also, she said she's not in favour of unilateral disarmament. We all know a lot of people don't like the idea of nuclear weapons in the world. But she said, but we're not in favour of unilateral disarmament. And she said that during the campaign. So they're all really debunks, but this is their pitch by the looks of it. Ram fictional Labour policies at undecided Conservative-leaning voters in the hopes enough of them will fall for it and back the Tories. And it may work. I still find it odd they've chosen to go with the exact same nonsense made-up policies that were tried and failed in London. Other aspects of their campaign include pushing this idea of a Labour supermajority, giving them all the power. A reminder, a supermajority does exist for certain things in some countries, not the UK. If you have a majority in the House of Commons, you have all the power, all of it. One of the reasons why I'm in favour of proportional representation is a party that gets 40-something% of the vote should not have all of the power. The Conservatives won 365 seats in 2019. That gave them all of the power. Almost none of their major legislation has had any cross-party support. All went through easily. Rwanda plan, no cross-party support, sailed through. Public Order Act, no cross-party support, sailed through. Environment Act, let's let water companies just dump a load of sewage in our rivers and lakes. No cross-party support, sailed through. Or as far as you can sail through sewage-filled waters. Everything, it just sailed through. 365 seats. Labour are going to easily get many more than 365 seats. So what if the Conservatives with 365 could get everything to sail through? Labour are going to get that with what they're going to get anyway. So this idea of a supermajority is an absolute nonsense. You do not get more power with even more seats above a certain level. Labour could get an extra 50 or 100 seats on top of what the Tories got. Does nothing extra for them. However, it doesn't mean the line doesn't work. Most people don't understand our political process. I think there's going to be a lot of people surprised when the results come out and they see that Reform UK have got this fairly large share of the vote. I don't think it's quite as large as some polls are saying, but they're going to get a fairly hefty share of the vote and yet only win 2 or 3 seats. Many people really don't have a clue. But it really looks like this is the final phase of their campaign. I suspect what they're doing here is ramming as many of these out as they can for this week so that they can distill which ones work best, drill down, use their internal polling, find out which ones work best so that they can focus on those for next week, the very final week. That's what I suspect is happening. It looks like this is where we are with the Tory campaign now. Rishi Sunak is spending a lot more time in his constituency, fearing for his own seat and perhaps persuaded he wasn't exactly helping on the national campaign trail. CCHQ are pushing fears of completely made up taxes and a Labour supermajority, which doesn't exist, whilst failing to attack Reform UK effectively with the really easy wedge issue of Putin and Ukraine. They're also furiously trying to fend off further damage from the ongoing betting scandal by doing absolutely nothing about it. In fact, as I've had to pop to the hospital for a follow-up this morning, so I've had to publish this video well in advance, that particular story could have blown up even more by the time you watch this. The game for the Conservatives now is, can they persuade some of their undecided voters to turn out and hold their nose, rather than face Labour's plans to put a massive tax on varicose veins or something, whilst at the same time trying to avoid losing voters to their latest acts of corruption? The Tories will certainly be keeping a close eye on their internal polling for the impact of this final phase of the campaign, as I say, before rolling out what I think will be their very last gambit next week, which I think will be the ones that seem to work. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe for further content and click the like button. You can also sign up for memberships if you'd like to support the channel further. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.